the Grey Hat Beard podcast. Hello and welcome to Grey Hat Beard Princess. I am the Grey of Grey Hat Beard Princess. My name's Kevin McDonald and I am the Head of Practice Modern Workplace at CPS, Microsoft 365 Office Apps and Services MVP and a Viva Explorer.
And my name is Al. I am the Hat of Grey Hat Beard Princess and I'm a technical architect at the Microsoft Technology Center.
And hi, my name is Louise. I'm the Princess of Grey Hat Beard Princess. I'm an M365 and Power Platform consultant and dual MVP for M365 development and business applications.
And we have a guest today. We have, very excitingly, just 3 days into his MVP journey, Leon Armston. Leon, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Kevin. And thank you all for having me. It's been a goal to appear on Grey Hat Beard Princess. Yes, I'm Leon. I'm a M365 solutions consultant at Intelligy in London in the United Kingdom. And as Kevin said, and I have to thank him for nominating me, I'm a new MVP in M365 apps and services.
You'll get used to working out exactly what you're an MVP in as you say it more. It takes a little while.
Yeah, but then they'll rename it.
Microsoft would never rename anything, and we know this. So they are always very brand consistent. Sarcasm up for now. Okay.
Now, some of you may notice we're looking a bit different if you look in the video, and hopefully we don't sound too different if you're listening to the podcast, but we've just moved to a new platform. It means we can stream live. So we may get interrupted by chats and messages from people joining live. We don't know. We thought we'd just turn it on and see what happens. So in the future, keep an eye out. We'll start maybe publishing these and people can join us and join in with the conversation live. But we're still going to do 2 parts. So part 1, we'll be talking about some of the latest news. And then we're going to go into part 2. And I just think we didn't talk about this before the show. Leon's going to talk to us a bit about Syntex. And we'll have a chat about some of the magic that can bring from there. But I think we're ready to kick off with some news. And this one, I'm going to be honest, I've seen this article, haven't had a chance to read it, and Al claims to, and Louise claim to know a little bit about this. So the Microsoft Teams Rooms Pro and Microsoft Teams Rooms Basic. We are going to bore people to death by talking about licensing because there's nothing controversial in this. Is that right?
There's never, ever anything controversial in licensing changes, is there? I mean, licensing is just one of those things that just goes smoothly, a bit like, the naming conventions, they all stay the same. It's just
exactly.
Nice and smooth.
So first, there is never any change. And secondly, it's super easy to understand. So no one ever needed to look up anything and nothing ever was just like, yes, it is, but also it depends. So luckily, this thing is rather a thing of they make it more expensive for most customers than about I do not understand what I need to pay because they moved away from having a standard and premium licenses, which were about 15 to 50 bucks per device per month. And now we have Teams Rooms Standard, which is 15, so that stayed the same. No, that is basic. So
basic.
Very basic, which is for free, but does not give you anything that you would need. And if you really want to just use a room system, then you need to upgrade to Rooms Pro, which is $40 per device per month. And
this is about
expensive.
Where you've got a device in the room, in a meeting room where you want to sit there, you want to be able to join a meeting in the room. This is the cost for those devices. So previously you had to, I have to be honest, I hadn't realized you had to pay for each one of those devices. I haven't done massive amounts with meeting rooms. And what they've changed now is they've removed the majority of functionality, but made it free. But then the majority, they've pushed up the license quite a bit.
Yeah. And
it's the room,
$40 is a lot.
Yeah, it's the Teams room system, basically, that allows you to go into a room one touch, and you're using the screen, you're using the speakers, you're using the mic. You might have coordinated join with the different devices, so it's how you actually enable a room just to be used very, very easily by all users who just want to go in and use that room. So none of that plugging in loads of cables and trying to work out, do you have the right connector, unplugging stuff, replugging it in. It just much easier. But there's all sorts of different features, like front row, ways to make hybrid meetings far more effective in terms of how they're laid out.
Just like to give you a notion for everyone who's not watching but only listening, if you want to have such an advanced feature like a chat, you will need the Pro license.
Like chat? I've just seen that one.
Chat is considered to be a Pro feature, and then for me, this is not about just like having super advanced features and just like some very much, I don't know, very much Pro feature, but to me, it feels like a chat is a super basic feature because some information is just like easily shared over text, but it's not easy to share, just like in screen sharing, just like if I want to provide you with a link. Yes, I can put that long link on a slide, or yes, I can use the QR code generator, but if I want to just like use the chat for that, then I need to have a Pro license.
But what chat is that? Is that chatting from the Teams Room device, or is that any chat from anyone? So it's if you're onto the device. So if you wouldn't generally chat from that too much anyway, would you? You generally do it from your own laptop, or
and this is where there are certain things that you are controlling from the Teams Room system. So if you had a Teams meeting and you weren't using it, you'd still be able to use all of those features. It's not taking those away from meetings. It's when you're using that Teams Room system and using in particular the device in that Teams Room system. So front row, for example, isn't available for us using Teams just independently. You have to have the MTR in place to actually use front row.
And the front row, that's the capability that would isolate individual people in the meeting room and make them appear separately.
Yeah, and to lay them out across the bottom of the screen with content being shared at the top, with chat being visible and hands up being visible as well.
And it mentioned here also PSTN calling. So presumably that's dialing someone into a meeting also requires the premium license.
Yes.
As well. Okay, interesting.
So of course, such nice thing like together mode and so much more. Or do you have just like conditional access policies enabled in your tenant? Most likely, yes, because it's considered best practice. Yeah. So and then I feel like basic is really like super basic, and it does not give you a lot of value, and then you can say, yes, it's for free. But then the jump to $40 already, this is already a lot. So, and I wish there was just like an SML t-shirt so that there is some middle ground.
Yeah. And I think I think the thing that worries about, I think it's kind of nice that there's some simpler things, because I imagine the vast majority of people join the meeting, they connect with their laptops, they have a chat, and that's it, and can live without together mode and things like that. The problem I see is that trying to convince people to spend that money on those things is going to be virtually impossible, and no one's going to use that great functionality. That I see as a big problem. Yeah, I don't think that's the last we'll hear on that. I think it's the honest answer. I've seen a lot of noise about it without having had the chance to dig into it. But I think we'll be looking forward to
there's a lot of noise about it.
Yeah. Yes, I can see that. And I imagine where people are already using a lot of those functionality and suddenly having to pay a load more for it, they're not going to be too happy about that one. So, I mean, I know Tom Arbuthnot with this blog, and we'll put this in the show notes. He says, by comparison, Zoom is $49 per room per month on there. So in some ways, you can say they're aligning a little bit and just coming in slightly cheaper than that. But again, the second you take something away from people,
I mean, you do get other features in terms of the management that you didn't get with the basic. So there are other things that they kind of moved things around a bit. So actually, for a lot of enterprises, it still makes a lot of sense, in terms of having that management and not having to manage, thousands of rooms at scale individually. So there is a balance to strike, and it definitely isn't the end of the world. It's just a change, and nobody likes change.
Yeah.
No one likes change. No one likes to pay more. I think this unites us. That
absolutely.
No one no one likes that. But I feel like Microsoft is making it too easy for us to complain about that. So they sometimes fail in just like packaging this up into a nice message and just like introducing that, and then they get just like pretty defensive. Yeah, but we're cheaper than Zoom. Yeah, no one asked about that.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah. So yeah.
Oh, you could always bring. I forgot what the Google one's called now. But yeah, you could bring the Google one back in. That's always entertaining. So while we're talking about the changes of licensing and everyone moving away from those, there's also adoption. So Microsoft put this post out about Viva, and I really liked this one because, if I'm honest, there aren't quite enough case studies for Viva at the moment. There's a growing number. They're looking good, but the biggest one is Microsoft. They are drinking their own champagne and using Viva, and they've pulled together all their great content about how they kind of manage the change for Viva, about getting in leadership buy-in, and a lot of this is fairly standard adoption and change management, but nice to see that they're sharing that and putting that out there as well.
You say it's standard adoption and change management. Unfortunately, adoption and change management aren't standard, though. They're not used everywhere.
Well, yeah, but okay, I'll take that hit. But I mean, it's things, for those looking at the screen, it's things like get senior leadership involved from the beginning. Have leader nominated points of contact, as it says. As it says there, one size does not fit all. So it's nice to see some of this and putting the contents out. And there's more links on the adoption site around the kind of assets that they've created and making those reusable. So it's quite nice to see.
I get that they are drinking their own champagne, and yes, Microsoft is a company that usually solve their own problems first. So this is why we have so many cool projects for which they are the first use case. So we have this a lot, especially with Syntex, which we will be talking about later. But I feel like this is very textbooky, So it's just like, get executive sponsorship. Yeah, we know that. So this is not new at all. It's nice that they now emphasize, hey, adoption is super important, but this is not a new thing. And
No, I mean, the more detailed post goes into more specifically, rather than just that one line of like activating sponsors. It goes into a bit more about that. But yeah, you are right. It's nothing new about listening to employees. Who'd think of doing that? And some of the elements. But I do like this one. I mean, this one's fairly specific to Viva about partnering with HR, and too often I've seen IT projects in big organizations ignore the HR aspect to it, and you really can't do that with Viva, but you shouldn't be doing it with a lot of them. So I think everyone should be taking any of these posts with a healthy dose of cynicism on there. I know I think I put this one out, and I talked about drinking their own champagne. Veronique, I'm going to call you out. Veronique Lengel said, I think you mean eating their own dog food. So yes, I've already had words with her about that one. just how interesting. Leon, are you using any of Viva at all at your organisation, or is it far too Syntex focused?
No, so we use Viva Topics. We're starting to get some good value out of it. We had the licenses because we're a member of the Microsoft Content Services Partner Program. So we got the licenses for free and Syntex. But the Viva Topics didn't really light up that well at the start, but now they've improved it lots, and we're getting some really good value now, and new starters can join, and they can connect with projects and see what's been going on, who are the key contacts. So yeah, Viva Topics is really impressive, but we're not using too much of the other stuff. We're using Viva Insights, sometimes good, sometimes some of the recommendations are not so good, but no, definitely Viva Topics is very good.
That's nice to hear, actually. Yeah, I think it's the one. It's one of my favorite ones. Although Viva Goals is my new baby, but Viva Topics is always the one. I think having that knowledge management is key, and put it there in front of people is always a nice one there.
It does need a bit of curation, though, doesn't it? It does. It does take a little bit of effort to really make it sing and dance and do what it's supposed to do. It doesn't just kind of sit there and do it all on its own. But the more effort you put in, the better it is.
I'm a consultant. I'm upset when it doesn't have that. You need those extra things just to bring a little bit of money coming in occasionally.
Sorry, I keep forgetting you're a consultant. Yeah,
exactly. Thank you. I should move on quickly. Hello to any of my clients who are listening. And sorry. Moving on very quickly. Adoption score. I think Louise, you were touching on this earlier.
Yeah. So to be very honest, I only skimmed this blog post, but the outstanding value was just like it was enough for me to already get hooked. So I should catch up with that, but you should do as well, because when I ask customers, hey, how is your adoption journey going, or where do you see yourself in the maturity level after I introduce that to them, then their self-assessments and what I can get out from reports, that does not quite match. So they always think that they're way further along in their adoption journey than they actually are. And this is not just like tell me something that is not the truth. It is really what they believe. And I think as this is not easy to measure, if Microsoft provides something to make it more easable, measurable, and to make it obvious, and so that I could get a report on that and to improve, like I can improve my Azure security score as well. So something like that, was just like, hey, so you are here, you want to be here, so this is what you got to do.
And that's the bit I love.
That would help a lot. So first to raise awareness, but then to provide actual insights, and because that is what customers need, because most of them are just like totally lost. And they are totally drown in content because there's just like too much going on. But just like giving them recommendations, hey, this is what you can do now to improve, that will be super helpful.
That's really cool. Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I love the compliance score and the security score. So having something like that, and I think from the bits I've seen about this, I think Leon, you sent another link. Let me, of course, it wouldn't show up on the right screen. You had one you put through that kind of talked about using that score, and I think it doesn't feel like the underlying numbers have changed that much. But it's kind of pulling on some of those adoption metrics that they had previously, and then added the kind of overall score. And from looking at this, let me just make that a bit larger for people. You can see that history, and you can see that people experiences, technology experience. So you can digest into other things. I was just trying to see on this whether it doesn't seem to have. Oh yeah, it's got that peer benchmark as well. Which is one of the things I love from the security score. You can kind of see how you're doing with others on there. So I think it's going to be good.
Because of course, if you are a small organization with, let's say, 400 seats, then you do not want to compare yourself to Microsoft, right? So you do want to compare yourself.
It would probably look better, to be honest.
Well, we want. I will not confirm nor deny this, but you want a comparison that makes sense to you. So this is really a good thing, and looking forward that this really just like improves even more, because it will provide a lot of value to lots of customers and would make the work for lots of consultants that do work in the adoption space so much easier, because then you could just like easily say, hey, what's your adoption score? And then you say, 31 or so. So, and then the consultant exactly knows what to do.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to note that this is one of several different sets of data that you can get out, because this is essentially the productivity score as it was, but just rebranded. And so it has been around for a while for people to use. But there's also the stats that you can get out from the Power BI usage reports in terms of, what services people are using, which can give different data, more in-depth data about where people are using different tools. So it's important to remember that actually in an ideal world, you're looking at multiple different data sets and you're looking at them from different perspectives. And so long as you know what questions you're asking of this data and what you're going to do as a result, then it works really well to bring it all together.
Yeah, I noticed in there it says 60% of meetings in your org follow one or more meeting best practices. So it looks like it kind of looks like that etiquette score we talked about a little while ago, Al. It seems to come through from this. So I'm glad I didn't put more effort, because I knew Microsoft would just do it eventually.
But this is where you started to see that roll into Viva Insights in terms of some of the etiquette and the data around are you starting on time, are you doing multiple tasks, are they overrunning?
But that is a premium part of the license, those meeting insights. So interesting that it talks about meeting best practices here. But
it's the detail that you need in order to do something about it. This is quite a high level stat that you're getting here, rather than,
and it does not drill down to each and every single meeting, and it's anonymized, so which means GDPR is
a great point.
Less of a problem. I wouldn't say no problem, but it is less of a problem than. So so I like it. Thumbs up from me.
Absolutely. No, really, really happy to see this, and yes, looking forward to getting more involved in that. Right, I've lost my notes on what we're talking about. The next one was a Gary link, and then he couldn't join us today, sadly. But I think Louise.
Does that mean we have to make some stuff up to explain it?
Yeah, basically, and blame Gary for it, especially as my copy and paste is failing, and that's because I can't get used to Macs. But this one, Louise, if you want to start talking about it, was SharePoint Framework 1.16, and I'm sure off the top of your head you can remember exactly what is involved in that one.
Yeah, of course. So Forms Customizer was introduced in 1.15, and now we have new properties for Forms Customizer in 1.16, and so we removed Node.js 12 and 14 support because we moved on to 16. Yes. So this is kind of a biggie. And of course, async rendering of Viva Connections adaptive cards. This will just like extensions. This will make a lot of developers very, very happy, I think. I think in my
we all love adaptive card extensions, don't we?
You do we? Yes, we do. We love them, right? So there was a nice blog post by Visa as well to just like go extensively over all of that as well. And I just like how much SPFX is improving, and that we're pushing version after version, and that people can rely on that. And
I know. Gary, and I think you have talked about this, but this is a preview release, so this is not recommended for use in production, but it's telling you what's available, so you can start trying your things out. I'm sure Andrew Connell will be jumping on it and looking at all sorts of things in there. I love his blog posts where he goes into the detail of things on there. But it's good to see that kind of cadence of updates to SPFX hasn't slowed down at all. It's quite impressive.
It is super impressive, especially when you know that just like SharePoint powers everything that is new and cool. So regardless if that is Viva or it is Teams or it is Syntex, so this is all powered by SharePoint. So it is very cool to just like focus on this extensibility model. And I like, of course, the very consistent messaging around this.
Consistent messaging in terms of the regular updates and things like that.
Yes,
I agree.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, thanks for. Do you, Leon? Have you done much SPFX or?
Not for a while. I started a couple of years ago, but yeah, the whole TypeScript thing, scared me off a little bit. So no, the only code I get involved in these days is it's PowerShell, especially PnP PowerShell. But
I'm more focused on that side. Yeah.
TypeScript can be scary. I agree.
TypeScript.
I've been convinced by Gary to rework one of the bots I created, the Where on Earth bot, as a Node one, using the Teams. What's it called? Teams Toolkit. Yes, and it is definitely stretching me and reminding me what I don't know about TypeScript, which is always
And how was your Teams Toolkit experience?
It's been brilliant so far. Teams Toolkit has not been the issue at all. That has worked very nicely. It's helped me debug things. If I had a very minor grumble, I would love to see a bit more unit testing samples built into it on there. But the ability to run it compared with where I've tried to do Teams apps before, it has made it so much easier just to click and deploy, have it all built into code. So kind of learning how to build Teams app has been a lot easier. Trying to get the bots working and dialogues and things like that, that could.
I feel like it's just like it's like a little bit like having the Azure Functions extension installed on VS Code. So you just like deploy everything just like from code, and this makes it just like super smooth and easy, and you do not need to click through this portal and then assign permissions and that portal and just like do a lot of different things. So this is like the one-stop shop for all.
Yeah, it's been great, and it clicks there, and so far has just worked. I had some issues with running it through a container. It was my use of containers, not through the Teams Toolkit, that was the problem. I soon realized. So lots of stuff there. But that brings us very nicely onto the next article, which is the Teams App Camp. So if you have no idea what the Teams Toolkit is, but you're kind of intrigued, this is probably a good place to find out more. I don't know if they specifically cover the Teams Toolkit as I'm saying that.
Yes, they will be covering this as well. So this is as it reads, an on-demand workshop, and it consists of hands-on labs which you can find on GitHub, and lots of videos that then just like complement the content that you will experience on GitHub, and is really hands-on because you really get to build stuff on Teams. And you do not need to have any specific tooling because everything is just like JavaScript. So for everyone who's just like super afraid of TypeScript but can't write vanilla JavaScript, you should be fine.
That's so you don't have to learn TypeScript to do this.
Nope.
No,
that's good.
So TypeScript, of course, makes sense. But if you're okay with vanilla JavaScript and want to dig in, let's check a little bit later into TypeScript, you're highly welcome in those labs. They are just like super detailed and very, very much step-by-step instructed with lots of screenshots and videos, and people explain just like literally everything, so that you do not need to assume too much. And it is really suitable if you never developed a Teams app before.
Yeah. And I think it's nice looking through this post. You can see there's the kind of technical briefings. Rabia Williams and Bob German, two fantastic people, explain the details there. There's also James Skay and David Starr talking about monetizing Teams apps, which is interesting. So I know there's been the recent updates about being able to put your Teams apps into the store and that sort of thing. So good to see the support. They're obviously realizing that there's a large chunk of people who are driven by money and wanting to get the apps that way, but good to put it there. You know, we've seen with the Windows Phone that you need to have that app support, and I think there's obviously the feeling that Teams needs to be there as well to really get that backing. You need that ISVs supporting it to keep that environment alive.
So I feel like it's still like most organizations do not get what is the entire value of Teams, that this is just like one app in the entire M365 ecosphere. They still treat Teams as a Zoom replacement, or yes, I can just like chat in there, and sometimes they even get the concept of, well, what is an M365 group, and that this sits behind each and every single team, but they do not perceive Teams as an extensible platform. So yes, Teams already provides a lot of apps built in. And yes, you can buy some as well, but you can also build some just like to fill those gaps, or if you have just like super specific needs. And most organizations do not get this, and therefore we do not see a lot of people, a lot of organizations build, especially apps for Teams. And the idea, I think, is to just like lead the conversation by, hey, you could make money with that. Would you like to learn how to do this?
And I think you're absolutely right. A lot of organizations, they've gone on to Teams for a particular reason. You know, it might be communication. Primarily, it's communication.
Yes.
But many organizations are still using a lot of different tools that maybe they can't just bring into Teams natively. They can't bring it in comfortably and easily. And so to enable that better integration, this is a great way to actually look at how you wrap something up and actually bring it into Teams. So, and I think you're right, Louise. Most organizations are not investing the time to do that, but there are massive potential opportunities for them to optimize the way their teams work, their small t teams, the people.
And to be honest, it is not just like the TypeScript that is, of course, sometimes daunting for people, but also Teams development is hard. So it is hard for literally everyone, and you need to know a lot of stuff. Like really a lot of stuff to be able to build your own application on Teams. And it's very good that they now provide just like an end-to-end walkthrough, and do not only just like talk about, this is how you do Hello World as a bot, and Hello World as a web part, and Hello World. So because Hello World does not provide value. And yes, I know they always think about, but then they know how to do this, and then they can add their code. No, they can't. So
I think
there's
the other
minimal viable product, and then there's Hello World. They're not the same thing.
They're not the same thing. But the other thing is, there's a lot of people in organizations who are already working on other apps, working on other tools and other systems. So to enable them to cross-skill and to take their existing skills and cross-skill into Teams, you know, if they know JavaScript, great. If they know TypeScript, even better. You know, it's that ease of transition, which is great.
You can go from there. So it is scary, but you can learn it. you can even learn off. I promise. No, you can't. You just copy and paste off. You just copy and paste it. I'm sure. Don't quote me on that. Moving on, talking of auth, you see another seamless segue there. Al, you brought this article through about the updates on Power Apps, and there was one you thought was particularly interesting in this.
There was one that jumped out here: build apps across multiple tenants with Azure B2B Maker. And you know, a lot of the organizations that we all work with, they will have more than one tenant. It might be within their own organization. So, you know, a global organization, it may also be with partners that they're working with. And the ability to actually build a single Power App and actually enable people from other tenants to authenticate and use it is something that will be an absolute game changer, especially for those organizations who are maybe, you know, going through mergers and acquisitions and acquiring organizations with other tenants, or have a really strong partner ecosystem where they're working with a lot of partners. So I think this is probably something that's been asked for. I remember being asked for it a long time ago. And so to see this coming through, I'm not quite sure what Azure B2B Maker is, but I'll be intrigued to try that out and see what I can do with it.
And do you know,
totally
assuming this doesn't copy... Sorry, Luce.
So totally agreed. So whatever feature, whatever app, whatever approach I show to customers, there is always two questions. And this is just like regardless of the product or the feature. First question is, does it work on mobile? Second question is, does it work with guests?
Yeah.
So this is
See, I thought you were going to say how much does it cost there, but
no. So luckily, my customers are not that interested in how much this costs. They are more interested in what is the value that this can provide us. So they really think about the value that they get because nothing is just like more expensive than wasting your time. And so this is at least my customers. I think that, but that could be just like something about my customers in particular. But it needs to work on mobile, and it needs to be working with guests. And sometimes there's just like a lot of guests, and the larger the organization, the greater the desire is to work with external people. And if you always have limitations and no, you can't share this and you can't share that, then either you won't build the app, or yes, you will build the app and then still need to work around that. And then, of course, the value proposition that the Power App gave you or the Flow gave you or whatever, that is not as high anymore, because then people need to circumvent this just because of sharing limits.
So presumably, as this is using Azure B2B Maker, this is you still host it in one tenant and then you make that available to the other tenant. So I guess there's one, maybe not worry, but consideration that you're not, if that relationship stops. So you talked about the idea of a partner doing it and then making it available. You ideally want to copy it across. But this also means, and we've had this a few times, if you wanted to export, we often want to export and copy it over there, and we've hit issues with slightly different versions appearing things, especially with certain awkward tenants. This would remove that issue because it would still be hosted in your main, that source tenant, and then you just be connecting back to that. So I don't know if there are problems, considerations, but
well, if we're talking B2B,
useful there.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking B2B guests, then you're talking about everybody going into a home tenant.
Yeah.
Or they are a guest and they are going into somebody else's tenant where that app is being hosted.
Yeah.
And authenticating as a guest and saying, I'm going to use this app in your tenant, but I'm authenticating as a legitimate guest. So whether that's going through, it'll go through my own tenant to auth, and then it'll go through your tenant to go, and do I have access? So there shouldn't be any security issues any more than you would have with a normal guest access. And if you're using access reviews to actually review that, then you're revoking them if they're not renewed, etc. So this is basically saying, if you want to be able to have one process that you're running with both your internal users and guest users from external tenants, you can run that all. There's no extra hurdles to go over.
Yep, exactly.
And I guess connections, I suppose you could define a connection in the app, so that wouldn't determine which tenant that went to. It'd always be whatever had been determined in the app, so that'd probably be the host one on there. I guess the only thing is emails and things like that, that what credentials it used would be interesting. And then the other one is premium licensing. But I presume you'd have to have premium licensing in one tenant or other, and then it would make
it depends on the services that you're using.
Yeah.
Can we conclude with that? It depends.
Yes.
Oh, the eternal answer for every consultant.
42.
Definitely.
I do notice we have had a comment. This is very exciting. We have our first live viewer, and Ragnar said, super cool. Never heard of Azure B2B Maker before. Yeah, I agree. I think maybe a chance for one of us to dig into that and maybe talk about that on a future show. Or if anyone's listening would like to dig into it themselves, come and speak to us, aka.ms/GHBP. And then you can put that out there and sorry, if you go to that, then you can request to be on the show and come talk about topics. So do look for that. Now we've got a whole load, just to wrap up the first part of the show, we've got a whole load of events coming up. We're not going to run through all of those, depending on when you listen to this. Metaverse-one's coming out on the 7th. There's various collab days, Power Platform Conference, all sorts of ones we're not going to chat about, but do check out the show notes. Lots that we're speaking at. I think the new one, or ones that we want to call out, especially South Coast Summit, 14th, 15th of October. We are very excited. Not only the four of us, but also Gary there. We'll all be there in person. It will be the first event that all four of Grey Hat Beard Princess are together at the same time. I don't know if I want to say that because that might curse things.
Don't jinx it, but we plan to just like be there and have a drink or two.
Yes, or 3 or 4.
And that's just the morning.
Yeah, anyone who's attending the Viva workshop, yeah.
That was pre-conference drinking, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's where it started, yeah. I would say, I don't know if you covered this in the last show, Al, but we have also, Aaron and Nathan, they've put on an extra day, so it's now starting on the Thursday. So if you can get the time off, if you come along on the Thursday, they'll be streaming a whole load of the Ignite content. There will be quite a few MVPs and others from the community there to chat to about the events, that the announcements as they come through. So if you have the opportunity, do try and sign up and come down on Thursday. I should be there, hopefully fairly early on, coming down to listen to a lot of that, which would be good. On there, they haven't announced the schedule, have they? No, so we can't talk about that. I won't mention anything more, and I'll shut up now. Other big events, we want to thank them because they are talking about Grey Hat Beard Princess, but we also have the European SharePoint Office 365 and Azure conference over in Copenhagen from 20th of November and 1st of December. I know, Louise, you're going to be there. I can't remember your sessions off the top of my head.
Yes, I will be there. I don't know what I'm. Yeah. So
I can't remember either now.
I think that I will be talking about performance power apps, but actually
That's
I don't
the one.
know.
Yes,
I think so. At least I love to talk about performance power apps because they can perform well and they can look good if you put in some effort. So I will be talking about that.
And some of the cool stuff you've been putting out on Twitter is very, very exciting, I have to say, for the good-looking power apps. So
yeah, well. So the goal is always to build power apps that don't look like power apps, because I don't like this native look and feel. I don't think that this is the best that they came up with. I think this is by choice to emphasize the functionality of power apps. So I think this is a very conscious decision to make them semi-ugly. So yeah, it's not ugly that it offends anyone, but it's not particularly beautiful. And my goal is to create power apps that don't look like power apps. And recently I chose material design. So this is the design system of Google. So this is their Fluent UI. Because I thought if I can build just like Google apps or something that looks like a Google app with Microsoft Power Platform, then I can build everything. And right now I'm putting together a component library with Robin Rosengrün, who is just like the SVG and smart magician in Power Apps. And so we're working on that. Hopefully to be published soon.
Oh, cool. Oh, that will be. I will be very excited to see that and
hopefully
get that out. Definitely. Also, that's so for myself. I'm there with Zoe Wilson and Chirag Patel, and we're doing a Viva workshop both at ESPC and at the South Coast Summit. So if you want to know a bit more about Viva and want to get hands on with that, do please check that out as well. Otherwise, I think we will wrap up part 1, and Leon, we will be quizzing you all about Syntex and the magic and power of the automation. So if you're listening on the live stream, which no one is right now, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you're listening on the live stream, then stick around. We'll be live publish it on there. If you're listening on the podcast, you've had to wait a week. So, get on YouTube, get on our Twitter page, and you can watch us live next time. But otherwise, from part 1, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
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 So for those listening on live or catching up on this afterwards, this is the bit where we kind of go, oh, I can't believe we said that, and we start swearing. But we're not going to do that. We're going to be polite now. And is everyone good to carry on with part 2?
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Let's get straight on with it then. The Grey Hat Beard Podcast. We need to make that intro a bit shorter, don't we? Hello and welcome to part 2 of Grey Hat Beard Princess Show 65. If you are listening on the podcast, then please do go back and listen to part 1. We had a lovely chat about the new Teams rooms licenses. It's always good talking about licensing. We talked about adoption, both of Microsoft Viva and the new adoption score, some of the great things coming out in SharePoint Framework 1.16, the Teams app camp, and some interesting chat about Azure B2B Maker and how that's going to make your life of sharing Power Apps even more excited. But we are now in part 2, and we are joined once again by a guest, Leon Armston. And I'm going to hand over to Leon because you have a bit of a specialization, I think it's fair to say.
Thank you, Kevin. Yes, SharePoint Syntex. Probably for the past about a year and a half, I've been exposed to SharePoint Syntex. Probably before that, like my company, we were involved as part of Project Cortex with Microsoft through our partnership in the Microsoft Content Services Partner Program. So yeah, it's been very interesting seeing the concepts of getting value from your content, extracting metadata, to the whole AI story of Viva Topics, which we talked a little bit about in the first episode. So it's been in production about a year and a half now, SharePoint Syntex, and it's still heavily in development. There's lots of recent updates, and the roadmap looks very rosy, is what I would say.
So for the uninitiated, Leon, what does SharePoint Syntex do?
So SharePoint Syntex is for documents, but it's using advanced AI and machine teaching to amplify human expertise, automate content processing, and transform content into knowledge. So the key phrase there is transforming content into knowledge. So many organizations will have silos of information. Maybe they migrated everything as a lift and shift from a file share into SharePoint, no one's guilty of it.
No,
Don't do that.
Customers don't do that. They don't dump all their cascading subfolders into a library. They would never do that. And they would never then just like assign different permissions to each folder.
They would just put it. They would just put it all flat and just use metadata.
Yeah. Yes.
Exactly.
Of course, because customers love metadata, especially in file names. Final, updated when, commented by. So this is metadata in file names. But Lean, so how does Syntex do this? So how would I transform content into knowledge? So how do I deal with? So if I have all this crap now in libraries, and now what?
Yes. So yes, we've got all that crap in the folders, and that content might be reports, it might be contracts, it might be all different types of document types. So the idea is we can more than likely as well, they've done the lift and shift into one document library as well. So we can talk about list view threshold, but yes, we've got thousands of documents in a library, thousands of different types of documents. So it's going to take people a long while to go through those documents, open them up, identify that this is a report, identify that this report was written by so and so, the details of the report. So what we do with Syntex is there's two parts to Syntex to classify content and to then extract value from it, so entity extraction. So when we set up a AI model in Syntex, what's good about Syntex is it's not code driven. So you don't need to go into Azure Cognitive Services or Azure Forms Recognizer. There are all the services.
TypeScript. Oh.
Yeah, no TypeScript, no JavaScript, nothing. So you've got all those Azure resources in the background, but yeah, you're not interested in those. The Syntex team have took care of those. So they put a layer over the top, like a UI over the top. So you create a model targeting reports, for example. With the old AI models, you would have to train it with hundreds of files. But a key selling point of Syntex is you train it with, a minimum of 5 files. So you upload some sample reports, and then you teach it with five positive examples and 1 negative example. And then from this report, we want to extract like the report date. We want to extract maybe some details, like there's a financial figure in there, or maybe we want to extract who the author is, or any of those key values. So we've created this model.
So where you're talking about those kind of big piles of documents, you've talked about kind of teaching it. So you're looking for kind of groups of types of document that kind of are the same. So you mentioned reports, there'd be specific types of reports, and you're looking for those and be able to tag those. So say you had, your reports dumped all over, maybe you had a report for each project, and each of your projects had a folder, and then someone had copied that and called it V2, etc. Then it would be able to go through all those and kind of identify those different types of reports and extract the metadata from that. But you would have to define each of those types of documents up front. So it's not going to magically go through your mess and tidy it for you. You're still going to have some understanding of the sorts of document that you're looking for as well.
Yes. So yes, you might you've touched upon different types of documents. So you typically have a model per document type, but you may even have like different ones. So you might have a company A style report, a company B style report. But the idea is we can associate many models to a library, and because we've trained it to look for the model to look for a specific type of document, we can upload many files to the library, and then only the specific model that's trained for that type of document will pick it up. And we've also then trained that model to pick up, extract metadata from that, and then once the model has run on the document, it enriches it with the metadata fields that we've set up for the entity extractors. So then we've got the whole metadata story there, where we can do search, we can do Power BI reporting, we can turn the entity, so if it's a company name, we can then add that to a term store value, and then so
Leon, like many years ago, I used to work with a housing association, and they had a lot of content coming in, and one of their big challenges going into getting all that content into SharePoint was trying to map. They got a letter from British Gas or someone like that, or a bill. They needed to get the information out, what the address was it related to, so what property, what was the tenant name, what type of bill was it. So what you're saying is that SharePoint Syntex, if you trained it, it could actually pick up on those and actually apply the metadata against those documents.
Yes.
So do that automatically rather than them having to read through it and type it all in terms of adding the metadata to that particular file that's being uploaded.
So
yes. Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So yes, there is two different types of AI model types in Syntex. So there's document understanding, which is more for we've got a unstructured document. So we might be looking for a phrase that's on the first page, on the second page, on the third page. So variable type. So we could then but then we've got forms processing, which is targeting specific areas on a page. So it's always looking for the first line of the address in the top left-hand side of the page. So there's various different models depending on how your documents are structured or unstructured. But yeah, with your use case with the addresses. I just for another company, they wanted, and I'm touching up on the term store aspect that you just picked up. We have an extractor which picks up new company names from its statements of work, and then adds them to the organizational term store, and then then those terms can also be turned into Viva topics as well, or that term store value can be used in any other SharePoint document library. So it's saving someone rekeying that value into the term store. So that's been a recent.
And do you have any sort of approval step on that, or it just goes straight in?
There is there is on the Viva topics aspect, like turning things into Viva topics, that has an approval, but the open term set one requires just the term set to be open at like the tenant level, and so no, there's no real approval apart from what we suggest is you get your term store administrator to go in and curate the added terms, so you could merge them. So say if you've got like Grey Hat Beard Limited or Grey Hat Beard Ltd, we could merge those together. And with Syntex licenses as well.
You're going into licensing already.
No.
Oh, brave man.
Yeah. No, this is the benefit.
Before we go into the licensing discussion, so if I got this correctly, because I'm not a Syntex expert, so this is why we have you on the show, right? So this auto tags documents using AI, which then increases discoverability for users so that they spend less time with searching stuff. Did I get this correctly?
Yes, correct.
Okay, but that does not necessarily mean that it helps to tidy up things, because this is still like users save too much stuff, trouble, just like so users cause a lot of trouble by saving the very same thing over and over and over again. So yes, it sits in my mail, it sits on my OneDrive, it sits as a copy in my OneDrive as well, it sits in just like a bunch of things. Which means, and with only minor changes, maybe even. So because a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, because we can't deal with version history. Is there anything for that problem as well in Syntex? So just like discovering what is just like a copy of something that already exists somewhere where it should.
Yeah, I think unlike the old SAN servers, it'd be good to have like deduplication and stuff like that. I've not used that phrase for a while, but yes.
But it's still a problem, right? So
there isn't nothing like that. But like what I've tended to find with my Syntex engagements is we've enriched the files with metadata, and then with PnP modern search, it's all about building, because when a file is tagged to a Syntex model, it gets a content type which is the same name as the model. So you can do all filters, search queries for specific content types. So I've been building really nice PnP search solutions to say. And as well with models, you can push them out to multiple sites. Well, the document understanding part, the forms processing part, that uses AI Builder in the background, and that uses Dataverse to store all its configurations. So that's, you can't deploy that to multiple sites at the moment, but the document understanding, the more unstructured, you can do. So
is this like
PnP
document classifiers in sort of the compliance side of things, where you want to apply a label and you're looking for, a resume, because it's obviously all Americans. It's not a CV for us British people, it's a resume, but looking for those types of content in terms of the, as you say, the document rather than particular phrases within it, and then applying labels. Similar sort of approach, because you can use Syntex to apply your compliance labels as well, can't you?
Exactly. So yes, you can apply sensitivity and retention labels. So when the file is classified with the model, you can apply the label there too. So it is similar to the compliance. The compliance sensitivity labels classifiers. Too.
And let's face it, users don't, anything that you can do to save users having to think about what metadata they apply is a winning situation, isn't it? Because they're never going to really put too much effort into saving it all and thinking about exactly what it's got to be.
Yeah, users hate metadata, and then it's only when the files are enriched with the metadata, and then they can see like Power BI reports, they can see PnP modern search, they can see like another aspect of Syntex is content assembly. So that is create document generation. So you can, from a SharePoint list as your data source or as a manual data source, you can use an existing Word document, create placeholders in it. So say for a address, we can have a field that's first line address, second line address, city, location, postcode.
Or see, like contracts could be a thing where you want that kind of, or even statements of work, a classic one where you want to put those kind of common headers, common parts to it. You can reuse those.
Exactly. And
have you used that in anger? Or have you got clients who are actively using that yet?
I have actually, and that's been really good. With a customer, they wanted to send out a letter to all of their employees. So we created the letter, and then we sent out 300. Sorry, Alexa's going in the background.
Don't mention her. Don't mention it. Everybody listening will now be going off everywhere.
An infinite loop or something.
Oh, actually, that reminds me. Alexa, subscribe to Grey Hat Beard. We'll see if that works for people.
Yeah.
Shameless. Sorry, carry on, Lynn.
You need to first build a skill on Alexa,
Yeah, the Grey Hat Beard skill.
Why not? Please include the princess as well.
Now, the only reason I didn't say that is because I know it's still Grey Hat Beard in some of the themes. So, yes, sorry.
I know.
Yeah.
Gotta change that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Busted.
Yeah, so content assembly, there is now a new preview Power Automate action as well. So you can now bulk create, hundreds of letters now. So the content assembly is a growing area. It's just text at the moment, but on the roadmap there's images, so you'll be able to build up reports. There's more support for tables. it's a growing area, which I've been really impressed.
That's something that I probably spent about 2 or 3 years working with partners who were doing that, and third parties who were doing it, because it was such a powerful tool. Mail merge on steroids. It's such a powerful tool when it works well, and it does save so much time, and it helps organizations just be consistent. So, when you kind of look at the content assembly and the ability to kind of look at incoming content and kind of to, apply the metadata, it's a win-win, isn't it, really?
Indeed. And this is all driven from the SharePoint document library. So you create your template from the document library. You create a document from that template using the document library. So you don't need to go off into Power Automate unless you want to do bulk generation. You have to use Power Automate at the moment. But if you want to create one-off documents, then you can go into the SharePoint document library and do it all there, all under your Syntex license.
You mentioned it again. You did it again.
Yeah.
The L word
He
again.
really wants to tell something about licenses. So come on. How much will I need to pay for that? Because yet again, we use an AI service because users can't be bothered with filling in a table with metadata, right?
The cost of laziness.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So what does it cost? So what's the licensing model?
So at the moment, it is $5 per user per month, and that's about £3 something in UK money.
And how does that work if you're applying a model to a document library? Is it the number of users who can use that model?
That's a loaded question if ever I heard one out.
So there's been some guidance about this, because when Syntex first came out, it was anyone who touched anything that had benefited from Syntex required a license. So even if people were just viewing the files, they needed a Syntex license.
And people didn't adopt that? I can't think.
So,
it's surprising.
Microsoft listened, and they put some guidance out there. I'm not going to quote it or take this as gospel, but basically, if you're uploading content that is then processed by a Syntex model, you need a license. If you're using content assembly, you need a Syntex license. There's also certain menus that are only available if you have a Syntex license. But if you're just consuming content, then you don't need a Syntex license.
Sorry, Leon. So if you upload a document that is to be processed by a model, then you should be licensed for that. But if you're viewing it afterwards, then you don't need a license. Is that your understanding?
Correct. Yes.
I hadn't realised that upload. That's interesting.
So if you trigger a model, it's a license.
So what you want to do is you want to put it in one library and then have someone's Power Automate account to copy it over the other one. Yes, Louise, I am just triggering you on purpose there and playing.
If you do something, so in Power Platform we have a term. So this is not a real world. So this is a real English.
Don't be a knob.
No, so it's called multiplexing. So if you do something just to avoid a license, that's not okay.
Yeah.
And my humble opinion is, if you need to have a licensing guide, that is not a legal document, you're holding it wrong as well. And so today I learned we have obviously, so Leon educated us about this. So there is guidance on licenses for Syntex. So we have a licensing guide for Syntex. Most probably this is not a legal document. So this is only to just educate people, but you can't say, hey, but on page 15 it says to just avoid something or pay something, or just tell Microsoft, no, I'm not going to pay this. And additionally, it's costs for the AI builder, which is paid by capacity. Is that correct as well?
Yes and no. Like I said,
I
there's
think
been
you'll
lots of
find the phrase is it depends.
It depends.
It depends. And we
it-
have a rule
it
here
depends.
in this call. So I have an it depends swear jar. I need to. Oh God, it's heavy. It's really heavy.
Oh, yeah, we can. No, I
This
need
is
to put something.
yeah. So you
These
need to
plus-
put in money into the it depends swear jar because you're a consultant. So yeah.
I'll get it in the post tomorrow.
Yeah.
So with AI Builder, you used to have to pay, I think it was like $500 per month per tenant, but no one was doing that. So, well, not that I'm aware of, but so not many people were adopting the forms processing part of Syntex. But yeah, Microsoft listened again, good old Microsoft, and as part of the Syntex per user licenses now, you get a seeded allocation of AI Builder credits now. So yeah, you don't need to pay that 500 just to be able to use forms processing. So yeah, that's
So you get a certain number of credits that you can use per user, presumably.
yes. So per user. I can't remember the stats off the top of my head, but yes, you'd get a allocation per user, and they get pulled up to a maximum number of credits.
Okay. Obviously, the thing we had a lovely chat at Comsverse about some of the sort of situations you'd have with Syntex, but I think the thing that I find with that, and we talked a lot about the loveliness that Microsoft says. What are the things that have surprised you that have worked well, and what things haven't worked so well? So you've kind of had that hands-on experience, because I think a lot of people have heard the nice story about Syntex, but there hasn't necessarily been so many of the case studies and the real life experience. Do you have anything you could share around that?
Yes. So one of my customers, I think I spoke about this at Comsverse. They're a big infrastructure company, and they've got a big library with 2 million drawing plans of various pieces of infrastructure, and that the engineers need to view those plans on a daily basis. What they used to have to do was go into the library and get those big A1 pieces of paper and view them. The customer has embarked on like a digitizing program.
Just to clarify, literally a library. We're not talking document library. We're talking a physical building place library.
Physical,
lovely.
Yeah, physical library.
What things
Real
that exist?
Yeah, that's because they don't have a scanner big enough.
Yes.
Yeah. So once they digitized all of those 2 million plans, they were just sitting in SharePoint doing nothing. So they were just scanned as PDFs, no extra metadata added. So then we created a Syntex model to pick out information from those plans. So those drawing plans will have like, the asset ID, the drawing plan number, the location. So now all those files are enriched with metadata. So now the engineers, they just go on their tablets, and they can just use like a PnP search solution and search those plans. So they don't need to book an appointment to the library now. They can just get them on their devices. They even use I forgot what the VR headsets.
HoloLens.
HoloLens. That's the one. They even use those. So they've got the plans. They can find the plan. They can send them to the HoloLens device, and then they can be working on the infrastructure whilst looking at the plan. And that's all been possible because the files were enriched with metadata. They could search for the location and get all those plans up. So I think that's my best use case, because 2 million plans into a library closed down. It comes to people's devices, and They no longer need to drive back and forth between a physical library.
I mean,
It's the first thing. It's super nice that we need to emphasize. It's a physical library, so you can go there. There are books. Because so how we frame it, the library is always SharePoint library. So we were kind of biased like that.
Yeah.
Second thing that I was thinking of when you were telling that story, which is super amazing, is that SharePoint Syntex is more or less kind of a maker thingy. Because so you can do the assembly with Power Automate, and the data sits in Dataverse, and it uses AI Builder, which is on the Power Platform as well. Rather than so for everything like that, we have an Azure service as well. So they could use just like, I don't know, Azure Cognitive Services, Applied AI services, Custom Vision. So all of those services, which are not just like, so which are subscription based, but not just like with a fixed license cost, but they chose to do this in kind of a more maker scenario rather than just like do the full-blown thing in Azure. And I find this quite remarkable.
I think, as you say, Louise, it's like AI Builder. It's democratizing, what is actually dev services that are available, and making it easier and putting it in the places where it's needed, as opposed to, leaving them all out there in the cloud. And yes, they're wonderful, but actually putting them directly into SharePoint, where you can, if you've got the license, you can go and actually create that model. It's the right place for it to be, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it. So,
but this is why we talked about. This is why we talked about builds. Build is important, even if you're not developer, because this is what's coming further down the line. Microsoft will wrap these things up and make them available. So it's always worth keeping an eye on those things happening there, even if you're not dev, because these things will appear and be available.
Remember a few years back when everyone said, every company is a software company?
Yeah.
Which means that every person becomes a developer.
Mm.
It's as easy as that. So, and if you're building stuff, I don't care about the amount of lines of code. I don't care. You build stuff. So, and it's just like incorporating this straight into SharePoint is just like a super easy way for making people adopt this thing. And yes, it may be a little bit daunting or a little bit scary, and yes, it costs, but the value seems to be super great. And everyone is searching stuff. So if you ask any person who sits in an office or even in a home office, hey, what do you do for a living? Is they attend meetings, they search stuff, they answer messages. This is what they do for every one of us. This is our job, right? And if you can just like eliminate a lot of the searching stuff by just like making things more discoverable, so that maybe if I execute the search and I don't find anything, then I really know, okay, we don't have that. And it's not, I did not search well enough or for long enough. Then it's already taking a lot of pain away.
Absolutely. It's productivity services, isn't it? It's called productivity services for a good reason, because it's about making people more productive. Absolutely agree. And I think with Syntex, it was interesting. I think there was a bit of an assumption when it first came out that it was, you're going to magically put it in your big pile of documents and it would do cool stuff with it. What I love about your story, Leon, is actually there's some really great use cases that fit the use cases like that can make people really productive there. This isn't just throwing it at your big pile of documents. This is thinking about those scenarios and getting a big win from that, which also means you're not talking about licensing everyone will upload a document, because there's a smaller number of people. In your case, you've almost got that librarian is now a SharePoint librarian. See what I did there? And they can be the person that's licensed, upload that document, manage it, because then there's people who are just using those documents who don't need to be licensed. So you can still think about that and get a real benefit from it. And coming back to my question earlier, having used it, in demos and things like that, how different do you see demo life versus real life? Do you see the ease of kind of building those models continue to be fairly okay, or is there a lot of tweaking and work that needs to go into it?
Okay, get the swear jar out. So different companies will tend to have different structure, different levels of maturity in terms of structured documents. So yeah, I've gone from, it's taken 5 minutes to create a model that's production ready and will last time, to complex models where, although it says, Louise said it's for makers, you can go a level up probably if we're calling regular expressions.
Where's that swear jar?
Exactly.
Yeah. So recently, I just like spent an entire day in regex hell. It was just like it's. In the end, I succeeded, but this is just like. It is just like as if a cat is just like walking across your keyboard, right? And I don't even have a cat, so
that's exactly what it's like. Yeah. But I think that's the thing, though. I think with most of these Mocha tools, this is where, if there's a great way that you can, spend 5 minutes and you can get a production ready model put together, but then you have the tools there as well to take it that step further, and to lead on those devs who know regex, or to the people who know the content, and to really kind of add more complexity, more maturity to the model. That's the right place to be, isn't it? To have both of those opportunities rather than just be limited to whatever you can do in 5 minutes.
Yeah, indeed. So yes, some models take a lot of tweaking, a lot of training. Other ones.
And some organizations will have, I remember working with one organization, and I've quoted this for some of the demos that I've done, which have used regex and classifications, but where you have, one 8-digit number that means one thing to one person, and you have another 8-digit number in the same organization that means a different thing to somebody else. And it's like, okay, at that point, regex ain't going to do anything. It's just going to tell you it might be one thing or another. And I think this is where.
But there are things you can do, like look at what's before and after that with Syntex to kind of help get the confidence level up. But
And this is where.
This really comes down to those two models that Leon mentioned, that either we can just like look at a certain field and say, hey, this is a date, or this is the subject line, or this is the amount of the invoice, and then just like looking at texts and extracting what is this text about. And if we then just like combine these two, that's just like almost unlimited power. But yet again, also Syntex will not be the magic wand that just like gives just like superstructure and there is no mess at all, but just like it helps to discover content. Yeah.
Exactly. No, it's Syntex is a great tool, but there's obviously, it's a growing area. So that, there's obviously document understanding and forms processing that you've just spoken about, and then there's the whole compliance story. There's the content assembly story, but the two AI models, forms processing and document understanding. It's knowing when to use them, and when which one to use basically. And the licensing has got better as well, because before you used to, I'm going licensing again, but before you used to do document understanding because you didn't have to use the AI builder credits, but no, that's the forms processing part. Does have a great value targeting a specific area on a specific page. And I like.
How have you muted yourself, Kev? That's brilliant. Live as well.
We're all new to this platform, right? So be nice.
No, I'm just stupid and did mute myself on purpose.
Why? So I was trying to just like rescue you out of the situation. Being the super nice princess, not swearing at all for the entire episode. Can we talk about this for a second? They are really trying to behave, and I did not even have opinions. Yeah, so I
did notice that.
Yeah. I don't even know if this is a regular episode. And then you just like say that you're stupid. So of course you're not.
What I was going to say, I was getting distracted looking because they're going back to the regex. There's a GPT-3 generated tool that you can type in what you're trying to achieve with the regex, put in some examples, and it will also generate for you. And I will try and dig it out and find it and put it in the show notes, because that actually saved my bacon recently, although the link I have isn't working. So I think they've used up their Azure credits somewhere.
Correct.
Possibly. Sadly on that. One last question, Leon, where do we find out more about Syntex? What's the best place to kind of learn more about what you can do with it?
So there is a PnP repository, Syntex samples, which isn't that well known, but yeah, I've been trying to promote it along with so James Eccles and Bert Janssen are the maintainers. So there you can download sample models, which you can then deploy using PnP PowerShell to your tenants. And yes, see how people are using Syntex. So you can download a contracts model, deploy it to your tenants, and then see how people are using it. See how they've trained the classifier, how they've set up the entity extractor. You can, with the SharePoint Lookbook service, there are 2 Syntex templates there. So there's a Syntex content center template. So Syntex models are stored in a content center, which is a special type of SharePoint site. And what you can do with the lookbook is
Stop
on
that
steroids.
Don't be nasty.
Yeah. So you can deploy that content center template to your tenants. You do not need a Syntex license to play about with that and use Syntex. You do need a Syntex license if the models that you've created in that template, that site, you want to deploy them to other sites. You can't do that unless you have a license, but that's a great way to get used to Syntex and just keep it all within that site. Self-promotion, I like to blog on Syntex or speak about Syntex. So on my blog, leonarmston.com, you can find lots of Syntex articles. I try and keep on top. And yeah, there's obviously lots of Syntex documentation out there on the Microsoft site.
Yeah, I was just looking. There is a Microsoft Learn pathway as well.
Indeed,
for people
yes.
who kind of go through that, which is really nice. And you can get a trial instance for Syntex, so you don't have to go straight for paying for it. You can try it out as well, which is really nice. And you're speaking at South Coast Summit, I believe, on Syntex. So anyone's coming down Southampton, look out for that.
I am indeed speaking and doing an intro to SharePoint Syntex, talking about some real-world use cases, so some further ones that I haven't spoken about today. And then, speaking about some Ignite.
Can I just admire that? You're not giving anything away beforehand. I like
Indeed.
that.
Not allowed to anyway.
Look at that. Say thank you.
Okay, so everyone, if you're now listening, please join Leon in his session at South Coast Summit if you plan to attend there. If you do not plan to attend this, please do plan to attend this.
Please do.
Definitely.
Yes,
Thank
please
you.
do.
Definitely. But yes, I hope to be there. But well, I'll certainly be at South Coast Summit.
I was going to say, I thought you were definitely going to be at South Coast Summit.
I will definitely be at the summit, and I hope to be at Leon's talk as well. And we have just going to finish on one thing. What I love most about Syntex, and this is a little bit old school, is that it's called SharePoint Syntex. The SharePoint name is still there for new products. Yes.
Yes, so this is new, right? So usually they try to avoid this name, so it's almost just like the thing we don't talk about. So who shall not be named right? But they chose to have SharePoint in the name as well. I think it makes it easier for customers to understand that what is this for. So, oh yes, cool, we're using SharePoint, so most probably this is a valuable thing for us because we rely on that, because so everything sits in SharePoint these days. And I like that they did not give it just like a new fantasy name.
Yeah, don't just hide it. Be honest about it. It's good.
Long live SharePoint.
Absolutely. Oh, now that's parting words.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. On that note, I think therefore we will wrap up. We will be back. A huge thanks to you, Leon, really, and another big congratulations on the MVP.
Congratulations on being MVP. Yes, totally.
Really
Thank
well
you, guys.
deserved. On that, but thank you very much for joining us tonight. We'll wrap up. We'll be back for those listening live 2 weeks time. For those listening on the podcast, we'll be back in a week's time. Gonna have to think of a nice way of saying that, but we hope you liked this live experiment. We hope it's worked all right, and we will see you all soon. Bye bye.
Have a good one. Bye bye.
Bye.